These people are not illegal and they're not undocumented. What this is ethnic cleansing. ICE is stopping people, Hispanic people, in the service of the Great Replacement theory, something all MAGA acolytes hold dear to their dark hearts. You ask Elon Musk, you ask J.D. Vance, you ask Pete Hegseth, Kristi Noem, Tucker Carlson about the Great Replacement theory. They genuinely believe liberals, Democrats, Jews are purposely flooding the United States and Europe with non-white immigrants as part of their war on white people. They believe there is a war on white people, so ICE is fighting back because white people will not be replaced. And to make sure of that, brown-skinned people will be removed. Now, the Supreme Court in 1975 ruled that ethnic or racial profiling along the immediate southern border is permissible. The court in Brignone-Ponce decided it was okay for Border Patrol officers to question and or detain someone who appeared to be Mexican if they were stopped or noticed close to the border. The Supreme Court in 1975 said common sense dictates that if a person standing near the Mexican border sounds or looks or dresses Mexican, they could be Mexican and not a U.S. citizen. So in 1975, the Supreme Court ruled that border agents can have a reasonable suspicion that someone is in this country without the documentation if they look, sound, or dress like they're from Mexico and are right on the border. The court said it's okay for Border Patrol officers to demand from these people that they show proof of their citizenship or documentation, but it must be in the immediate vicinity of the border. That was 1975 on Thursday. Kristi Noem, the head of Department of Homeland Security, said all citizens now must show proof that they're here legally. All citizens. That is what Kristi Noem is saying. And it got worse after September's Supreme Court ruling. It's a temporary ruling that blurs the line between Border Patrol and interior operations. Interior operations meaning the greater United States. There's the border, keeping people from coming over the border. And then there's patrolling the entire United States, which is what's going on right now. And there's now no difference between how, thanks to Brett Kavanaugh, there's no difference between how Border Patrol agents use reasonable suspicion at the border and reasonable suspicion in any American city that they've been sent to. In his concurrent opinion, Brett Kavanaugh wrote, this was in September, that Border Patrol or ICE agents anywhere in the country can pull over anybody in any part of the nation, not just the border, anyone who looks, sounds, or dresses like they're not American citizens. They can be subject to what Brett Kavanaugh called investigative stops. These are now called Kavanaugh stops. Kavanaugh added casually in his concurrent opinion, quote, lawful residents or U.S. citizens are promptly released upon verification. So it's just a minor inconvenience if you're, say, a Hispanic veteran who gets rounded up and detained by border agents. All you have to do is prove you're an American citizen. No harm, no foul. You're promptly, quote, promptly released upon verification. So how long does that take? Has Brett Kavanaugh ever been held in a jail or even worse, a for-profit detention facility with open-air toilets and one meal a day if you're lucky. Has Brett Kavanaugh ever spent 2 hours, 6 hours, 2 days in an ICE detention facility while waiting to be promptly released upon verification? There are tourists who come to America with all their papers in order, but thanks to a bureaucratic snafu, they end up getting held in a for-profit ICE detention facility for days, sometimes weeks, before being promptly released upon verification. When 90% of your ICE detention facilities are for-profit, and each inmate is worth up to $200 a day, they can bill, Geo Group can bill, CoreCivic can bill ICE $200 a day to keep someone in one of their for-profit facilities promptly. Brett Kavanaugh says they'll promptly be released. When it's for-profit, promptly is measured in geologic time. There are tourists. There's a Canadian woman who spent months in the for-profit detention maze, and she concluded after she got out, she wrote a piece in The Guardian. She said, I realized I'm money. The longer they can keep me here and pretend the papers haven't gone through, the more they can bill the government. As I said, since the Supreme Court ruling in September, ICE agents demanding papers from anyone who looks Hispanic are now, these stops are colloquially called a Kavanaugh stop, named after Justice Brett Kavanaugh's concurrent opinion that it's now okay for ICE to perform an investigative interrogation and or detention based on 6 factors, and topping that list, ethnic appearance. Remember Brett Kavanaugh? This is the guy we all know. Blasey Ford was telling the truth about him. Kavanaugh is a little embarrassed that these are being called Kavanaugh stops, and he clarified in December. He wrote this ruling in September. In December, he clarified ethnic appearance can't be the sole determining factor in performing an investigative stop. So there are 5 other standards outlined by this Supreme Court ruling and Brett Kavanaugh. So there is ethnic appearance. That's the first standard. Is an ICE agent allowed to stop somebody? The number one standard is, does he look Hispanic? The agent, then the other 5 are, the agent must consider whether the person only speaks Spanish or speaks English or speaks English with an accent. Do they have limited skills in speaking English? That's the third standard. Really, ICE agents are now testing our English skills. I'm sorry, you just ended a sentence with a preposition, you're coming with me. Which you can do that, by the way. You can end sentences with prepositions. They've changed the rules. That's true. The fourth is location. If the suspect is hanging out in a parking lot of, say, a Home Depot or Target, where immigrants offer their day labor services, that is one of the standards that fits a Kavanaugh stop. And what kind of work are they performing? If they're performing something called low paperwork jobs, that is one of the determining factors that a person may be in this country illegally and subject to a Kavanaugh stop. So if you do a low paperwork job, if you don't shuffle paper for a living, you're suspicious. In other words, if you do something of value, like roofing, construction, landscaping, the Supreme Court says that's reasonable suspicion you're not an American citizen. So if you can actually do something, you're probably not an American citizen. And the sixth standard is the person is living in a community with a high density of immigrants. This is why if you watch TikTok and YouTube, you watch these videos of ICE agents going after people with abandon, it's the Supreme Court. They have the ICE has been freed up by the Supreme Court, and specifically Brett Kavanaugh, who most of us believe Blasey Ford was telling the truth when she said he tried to rape her. And that's connected. That is connected.